that you'll ever develop in this avocation.
Well, I'm glad that first raining game didn't deter you away from, the longevity that you've had.
you always take the good with the bad, and it's again, you don't whether you're working on a day early in September somewhere in Florida where it feels like it's 110 on the field, or you're ending the year somewhere in Green Bay or somewhere where it's cold, where it might be 5 or 10 below. You just love every minute of it. So
all right, Scott. Well, thank you so much for calling in. If you want to just let people know where they can find you or anything that you want to promote, you can go ahead and do that. But just thank you so much for this time. It's been a great interview so far.
Yeah, appreciate your time, guys, and appreciate you having me on and allowing me to talk a little bit about what we do.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Stay safe and have a great night.
Okay, you do the same. Thank you.
We should have queued up the whistle. Can you turn the effects down a little bit, please? That button up there, sir. The white one.
Indeed.
Yeah, we should have queued up the rest whistle, but yeah, man. Shout out to Scott for calling in. First time having a referee on. Shout out to Izzy for booking that interview. Interesting stuff there, man. I think
people don't realize a lot of y'all can't be referees.
For real.
And you're biased as hell. You don't have the physical fitness to run up and down those fields. You don't have like the ability to compartmentalize the entire rules of a game. It's one thing to argue over how to play Uno on Twitter. It's a whole nother definition. It's a whole nother, kind of deal to literally immerse your whole life into a concept and be the arbitrator and enforcer of said rules of a concept, and on top of having your own life outside of that. Like, that's...
I thought it was interesting, the point that he brought up, like, you don't necessarily remember the games or the calls or anything like that because, like, that's just your job. You remember all the dicking around and hanging out with your colleagues and
the moments in between, man.
It's
you talk
funny.
about the meals, the meals that they would have. People don't work like, they're refs, they're humans.
That's what I was going to say, is it's a lot like...
commingle just like everybody else.
It's a lot like the athletes, when you're coming up in football, they always tell you, like, these hell week, these double days, these times you're throwing up, running, like, those are the times you're going to remember. You're not going to remember the games. And here I sit 10 years later, and it's like 100% true.
Because I definitely remember when I was throwing up my freshman year and I lost 80 pounds.
And any pancake I got, I probably blacked out after, so I definitely don't remember that.
I definitely remember, like, one of my teammates pulling a knife on somebody over a peanut butter sandwich and getting their ass.
But
that was hilarious.
I mean, even with this podcast, like, we've had hundreds of good episodes. I probably couldn't name half of them. But I can tell you, like, our biggest errors for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
the
I
Taylor
definitely
Rooks
remember
one still
those.
hurts.
Yeah.
It still hurts.
So I definitely remember all the errors. I remember all the times where, like, we fucked around after the show or before the show. Probably more so than times when we fucked up on recording, on wax.
Wong's Walk. I remember the re-records we did because the first one didn't go through. Like 20 minutes in, we're like, oh shit, we're not. Keith's like, you guys aren't on the air. We're like, word? Oh, I don't remember what I said in the first 2 minutes, but that shit was flames. Like, it was a great juxtaposition because, I mean, you talk about, like, what if more former athletes became referees? Like, imagine that concept. You're still around the game, you never leave it, and you have a different appreciation for it. Like, he talked about the first interview, I had my legs shattered. Like, I was hooked on painkillers. Like, I was kind of a horrible person to sometimes. Like, when I was recovering and trying to prepare for my senior year, and I remember doctors telling me, like, yeah, we give you physical therapy, but you have to medically retire. I'm like, well, I'm not obviously going to do that because obviously I'm trying to play my senior year. But they're like, well, then there's no point in giving you physical therapy. You can get hurt again. I'm like, but that's stupid because how many athletes get physical therapy after worse injuries than me? They're like, yeah, well, we don't want to risk that, and you get hurt and we get sued. So everybody's experience is different on how they leave a sport that they love. And I think just because like you're passionate about something doesn't necessarily mean you get to do it for the rest of your life at a high level. Maybe you do it differently. Like Pete and I played football in high school. I played basketball and won a championship when I was a kid. Do I care to talk basketball like an analyst? Hell no.
Because you can't.
No, because I definitely can. And I called several NBA trades. No, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this. I know you can't play basketball or shit, but you cover it really great, and I give you your props. And like even I look at how you and I used to interact, like starting the podcast. Like I've come to a point where I know, okay, when it comes to Pete, I can't bring him an idea. Like, he's the type of person where like, oh, you got this? Well, here's all the avenues you could plug it into. You got to like have something like, boom, I got this. Here's what I want to do with it. He's like, okay, we can work with that. You can't just give someone like Pete an idea and then just leave it there. So it's like,
because honestly, I've forgotten better ideas than fucking half people's lives work.
Yes. And like on top of that, just look at our episode titles. That's a perfect example. Our episode titles, that shit is hard to come up with the creative episode titles that we come up with. And we've like literally kept it 200 plus episodes the way through. Like, so to connect this back to the refereeing and, you know, dealing with toxic ambition in something that you're really great in, that you feel like was your life's calling, the biggest thing is like you gotta just know yourself, understand moderation, and be vulnerable with people. Like that's some of the best ways I've seen to where people find success in these different avenues.
I think, and like I said, you know, had we had more time, I would have liked to talk to Derek about this, but just really cultivating that mindset, because even now that all this stuff is going on, it's still like, and I do it too, where it's just like, you know, okay, you adapt, you know, you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, you know, like you keep moving, you keep doing what you have to do. But the reality of it is that's still the same toxic mindset of like, you know, we're not acknowledging the fact that, hey, these kids lost half a season, or hey, these kids are getting a half-ass season, or, you know, hey, these kids might not even play, like, you know, and
hey, they lost a scholarship offer, and now they might have to go to the JUCO route, and JUCO is Siberia now.
Or not even just that, but, you know, just how hard it's going to be for 80% of the athletes who weren't doing shit to try to get prep for a season in a year, or, you know, all the academic challenges that people are having, because every teacher I know has been telling me that it's not just a handful of kids anymore, it's everybody struggling. So, you know, how do you really accept that? How do you really like foster a healthy mindset that both, you know, deals and achieves with those challenges, but also doesn't create this toxic, you know, anti-vulnerability that ends up brewing into something worse in adulthood?
And I think, and I should just say this because I was talking about it last week, like after my birthday, whereas I'm going to be 30 in a year, and I'm looking back at the decade of my 20s. Like, 22-year-old me really wouldn't be this deep. I was still like acting on emotion. And
also, be 100 pounds lighter. I thought my levels were lower. I thought I was going to be able to get that under while you were talking.
Got you, didn't I, bitch? Got you, didn't I?
You exposed me. Whatever else.
Exposed yourself. And this is in there Black History Month. After my birthday, you're a real scumbag.
You said black, not fat history.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. Touche. I went for a handshake and he dapped me. You piece of shit.
That shit was funny too. And Keith was like, hey, you know me and you dabbed me. You don't know this guy. You shook his hand. I was like, reflex. Sorry, man.
I'm just saying, we're gonna your black card, your black visitation rights might be up for renewal or denial at the end of this month. I'm just letting you know. Your case is not looking very good in the past 2 weeks. But hey, it is what it is. I think you should probably just atone by going on a dope-ass podcast and just getting all your petty out. Because there's clearly a lot of it there. Because, yeah, by the way, Batman definitely is a trash superhero. He is. But anyway. Yeah, it's funny when I don't know, like, some of y'all are like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Don't worry, it makes sense. And if you follow us and you know us, you would know that this whole conversation is kind of funny when you think about how, if you just go back to high school and what you were in high school, and let's say if you played a sport, you thought you were some hot shit athlete. Like, you never really looked outside of yourself most of the time. Like, you couldn't poke fun at shit you were going through back then. I couldn't poke fun at the fact that I was damn near crippled.
Well, it's funny because in the Saturday group that, you know, my brother works out in and stuff, they were running and they were like, I was off with the coaches. I was off with the coaches and just, you know, the sidebar. I was just like, oh, these kids need, like, they need to get on the track. Like, they have bad form. Like, they need to learn how to run. And I was like, yeah, shit. You look at the combine and people don't even know how to run there. Like, they're just straight up muscling.
Shout out to my mom who taught me how to run properly. I'm just not fast.
And my boy Josh, who's also been on the show, he was like, but you'd be surprised how many people don't take coaching. You'd be surprised how many people at that level are just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Like, they'll get advice from their trainers, they'll get advice from their agents, etc., and they're just like, no, I don't want to do that. And the funny thing is, other guy who was there was another one of my teammates, and he also played in the league, and he was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was that guy. He was like, you know, like, I just looked at it like, I've been listening to these coaches my whole life. Like, all these football people, you know, since Pop Warner, I've been listening to them, and it's like, well, now I don't have to. Like, now I'm a professional. Now I'm not a student athlete or whatever you want to call me, amateur. Like, I'm a professional. Like, I get to do this how I want to do it now. And so when they would be like, oh, training at 7 a.m., lifting at 7 a.m., I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. We'll do it at 9 a.m. We'll do it at 10 a.m. Like, I'm the boss. Like, I'm a professional. And so, I mean, I see both sides of the coin, but at the end of the day, you also have to understand what side of the coin you're on and why, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay to be that way, but you also have to, like,
accept the consequences of that.
And not just that, but you also have to understand, like, why you're that way. You know, like,
yeah. Like, I think
everything takes context. Everything needs context.
Like when I said on our IG, TDs_tangents, if you don't follow us, you really should be. Like, our memes are hilarious. I remember we were getting 1 or 2 likes. Now we're getting damn near like 50 to 100. We're in that range. You know.
All right. Well, fuck my stories.
No. It's
actually
circling. Not circling back into your story. I just want you to save it for a segment.
No. I'm
later
saying
in
the
show.
stories, the IG stories I'll be doing.
You didn't let me finish.
Oh, okay.
So Ricky from Boys in the Hood, we can all agree he was a shitty running back prospect. He only was 5 stars because he went to like one of the hottest high schools in the 90s, legendary high school. And that happens a lot. You get a cat who's, he put up great numbers and he's a 5-star player. Not necessarily. And you can look at our IG and I put a nice critique of Ricky's skills because he got bullied by a doughboy. Wasn't smart enough to realize a shotgun, bullets don't curve. My sister, we got in an argument about this earlier today. She's like, well, what if they... I was like, first off, that movie with Common, Morgan Freeman, Angelina Jolie, where they were assassins, and the dude killed his... Like, he was trying to hunt down his father or some shit. I can't remember the name of it, but they ended up all killing each other at the end of the movie. But you're like, bullets don't curve. So had Ricky just, I don't know, fucking hit like